So are you able to see
I
the
can.
screen? Okay. So again, the enduring importance of parental involvement. One factor, make no mistake about it, parent and family engagement remains critical to students' achievement. Ongoing research shows that family engagement in schools improves students' achievement, reduce absenteeism, restores parents' confidence in their children's education. Students with involved parents or other caregivers tend to earn higher grades and test scores, tend to have better social skills and show improved behavior. Becoming active in the school's parent group is an important way to increase involvement. Involvement also encompasses some other things, a few bullet points here. Setting goals with children, fostering achievement of those goals. A lot of times if you set goals, but you don't do anything to help them reach them, then they become failed goals, and then young people don't believe in that concept. So we have to kind of foster things for them to reach those goals. Assessing and using your young person's academic scores to ensure they're on track. A lot of times we get too caught up into scores, kind of thinking that is telling us that, oh, my kid must be smart or my kid must be this. But you just want to assess and sort of use those things just to make sure your kid is on track to where they need to be. Frequently viewing the different parent portals or whichever tools your school uses. You want to utilize that. Clearly developing a relationship with your child's teacher and keeping in touch with them often. Advocating for different type of improvements, things that you may see that the school staff may not see. Also, we need to figure out how do we start engaging with our local school boards, state and federal governments to ensure the schools have the resource they need. A lot of times we think that it stops at the principal's desk or the executive director's desk. That's not necessarily the case. A lot of times curriculums, funding, those things come down from school boards and states, entities, and different type of federal agencies. So we also have to start learning how do we engage and advocate with those folks as well. But clearly one of the most significant type of involvement is what we as parents do at our home. Monitoring, support, and advocating can be engaged in ways that ensure that our children have opportunity for success. Essentially, the foundation that is laid at your home is what our kids bring into the world, period. As it relates to education, as it relates to being a community member, as it relates to all of these things go hand in hand with pretty much what a kid is getting inside of their home. In a lot of cases, if not, then they're getting things from other places. We encourage our parents, please take an active role in your child's education all year round. We're going to talk about today's events in particular, but in order for it really to be successful, it's just like anything. If you sort of come to some one time, that could be a great touch point and whatnot. But in order to build some type of sustainability in it, it needs to kind of happen, on a regular basis. Great schools are a basic right, and it's our shared responsibilities to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that our kids is having that sort of experience. A real popular proverb that we hear a lot, this concept of it takes a village to raise a child. A clear message, the whole community has an essential role to play in the growth and development of its young people. In addition to the vital role that parents and family members play in a child's education, the broader community too has a responsibility to ensure high quality education for all. In the past, parent involvement was typically characterized by volunteers. And a lot of times, in a lot of cases, it was mostly mothers. They were assisting in classroom, kind of chaperoning and fundraising. Today, the old model has been replaced with a much more inclusive approach. School, family, community partnerships now include mothers, fathers, step-parents, grandfathers, et cetera, business leaders, community groups, all participating in goal-oriented activities at all grade levels linked to students' achievement and school success. That is kind of what we're seeing even today when the sister was just on here sharing some of what her skill sets are and ways that the school might be able to access that, to be able to interact with the students. How can we utilize some of those concepts? And that is what essentially we're trying to do. I heard her say in her introduction that her kid had only been at the school for a couple of years. So she was feeling that she was fairly new part of the family. But the fact that she identified it as being part of a family, that should be something you guys should be very proud of, that is what they're seeing it as, that they're not just seeing this as a place where their kid happened to get dropped off for about 5, 6, 7 hours a day, right? That they're looking and thinking of this as being part of the family. Research is clear, consistent, and convincing. Just the overall concept of this is that parent, family, community involvement in education correlates with higher academic performances. Out of that is an outcome that schools improve. When school, parents, and communities work together to support learning, students tend, again, higher grades, attend school more regularly, stay in longer, enroll in higher level programs. People talk about baccalaureate programs and all of those type of things. Those are the things that we should be striving to prepare our young people to be a part of, right? These higher expectations, and because we're working with the kids, we're working with the staff, the teachers, we're giving them the resources that they need to be able to elevate to those different levels. It just sort of would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get out of something what you put into it. So the more that we put this into our young people, the more they're going to get out. Positive impact of connecting with community resources. Again, we just connected with a resource from our community. That's well documented that those things are very effective. Community support of the education process is considered one of the characteristics common to high performing schools. I looked at something that Ms. Thompson had sent out where X amount of percent of her kids did infinitely well on the NWAs. And that's just showing that our kids are continuing to grow in spite of COVID, in spite of all of these things. So that means that we're creating an effective environment for our young people to be able to succeed in spite of the things that is happening around us. And I think that's really great. How do you get involved? I mean, there's your typical ways: parent-teacher conferences, parent groups, different things like that. Also, whatever things the school is trying to roll out that allow folks to get involved. But more importantly, parents can get involved on their own. We don't have to wait to be invited to be part of a committee. We don't have to wait to be invited to be part of some sort of think tank or different things of that nature. Just showing up, being engaged, asking questions, asking your young person about their different experience, developing solid relationships with other parents as well as school staff. Those are ways that you can just, walking in the door, get involved in this concept and these processes. So again, today, the focus was National African American Parent Involvement Day. And so a lot of people don't necessarily know what that is, what's it about. There seems to be information out there, but then it's not necessarily like it's some parent organization or some organization that's holding this. So, in some of the things that I looked up, today was all about a day to celebrate all families and to welcome all into classrooms, to see how scholars learn every day and to support their educational future. A day to celebrate African American history and heritage and to share time together as a whole community, right? February, Black History Month. We've talked about some of these things in the past. Why do we continue to label it as a month versus Black History Learning, period? But those are some of the barriers and things that we need to break down inside of our schools and have different ways of talking about these things as well. Some of the goals of the NAAPID simply are to promote parent involvement in their child's education, address the serious achievement gap facing African American students. We've talked about those things. To promote and provide strategies for parents and students to take full advantage of the educational process at all levels of the educational system, preschool through college. A lot of times, parents tend to really be involved when their kids are the littles, right? We tend to really be involved. Then we kind of start falling off as our kids start moving up through the ranks. I would venture to say that that's even more time to double and triple down, that you should be highly involved in your child's education and academic process, irregardless to age, grade, level, etc. A lot of times, as our kids get older, schools and start having an approach of, well, your kids getting older, so they got to learn to advocate for themselves and blah, blah, blah. All of that is true, but we also need to play a role in that. So I would beg you all to don't withdraw as your kids get older, actually go deeper and entrench even more in those processes. Again, what the NAAPID is a national call to action. We have to get our parents more involved in our children's education. Hopefully what this will do, a national observation will open up a dialogue among teachers, parents, and students, which will lead to a more conducive learning environment for African American students from kindergarten through college. So think of this as you are part of building out a movement, right? You're a part of building out something that is going to have effects long-term down the line. Again, the call of action is designed to address serious achievement gaps facing our students. We are at the bottom of the scale in reading, math, and science. We continue to lag behind other ethnic and minority groups. This pattern is said to begin as early as fourth grade. African American students seem to seldom recover from this educational deficit. I kind of noticed something just in all of my years when they're saying that it begins as early as fourth grade. When you see African American kids in kindergarten and stuff like that, their hands is like this all day. I got the answer, call on me, hey, yep, I know. Second grade, yeah, I got the answer. Third grade, yeah. Fourth grade, it's kind of like a checkout theory, right? And I don't know if that has to do like with tests and different things that they have our young people take that then decide what kind of path or where you get shifted to or whatnot. But that actually resonates with me because I'm able to kind of physically see that to where you see, like I say, our young people at the beginning is super serious into learning. They want to be engaged, but then as they don't get that support back, they tend to check out. And that's something that we have to be more keenly aware and kind of understanding that. This also happens with our kids in colleges and universities. Unfortunately, school systems that our kids are involved in They basically are lowering the standards for our kids just so they can say they have a higher graduation rate. Clearly, our kids are not learning as much, but however, they're saying that they're all graduating now magically all of a sudden. So a lot of times when our kids do go off to college, they just don't have a vigorous enough academic engagement in high school that will sustain them through college. And so that's one thing that we're starting to notice is that yes, our kids are going to college, but they're not competing, they're not completing in that arena. When is NAAPID? In theory, it's the second month in February throughout the nation during Black History Month. A lot of schools have different days. As we were doing research behind this particular topic, I was finding like Minneapolis Public School has nothing on their website that relates to this. We should take them to the mat for that. There should be some things that's planned system-wide. Not unfortunately, but fortunately, a lot of schools are left to their own devices. That's why I was extremely proud to see that Friendship was having this particular day. It's crazy how many schools are either not doing this or don't know about it, or there is no support from our Department of Education, our state Department of Ed, our local Department of Ed, et cetera. So I would like to say hats off to you guys for doing that. Again, I heard about how things went today. I've seen some pictures. Ms. Thompson sent out some pictures. They're beautiful pictures. Parents hugged up with their kids. That's really powerful, and it allows the other young people to see that our parents are concerned about our education process and what we're doing. Where does this happen? It takes place in local school districts, neighborhood schools, colleges, universities, etc. Again, I would love to see us put some type of pressure on the powers to be to recognize this as what it should be, National African American Parent Involvement Day, not just, well, my school decided to do something. Again, that's beautiful that we did, but it should be shown more support and more honor for what it really is. Parents, guardians, again, this day has passed, but here was some tidbits on preparing your kids for this. So we talk about sort of these pre-conferences, sort of this preparatorial model and concepts. Ask your kids what's going on in the school, ask about their schedules, grades, what's their status in their class, what do they like best about it, etc. Ask them about their goals, their objectives. A lot of times we put goals and expectations on our kids, but they don't have any kind of say-so in that process, which as we all know, when you don't have any say-so in anything, you're sort of just doing something because that's what somebody's telling you got to do. So you don't necessarily get that true buy-in that you need. You know what I'm saying? It talks about, once you arrive at your school, kind of things you should do. Utilize the notes from the pre-conference that you had with your child. Ask your teacher like any kind of relevant questions that came up with that. Kind of talk about dialogue, difference and similarities between the child report and the teacher's report. All of us as parents, there's times where our kids will tell us something and then the teacher will tell us something, and they're like two complete opposites of each other. So as they say, maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But the reason why I particularly ask my kid their opinion, because I want them to know that what they're telling me is important and of value too, and not that, I'm not believing anything that they're saying or what they're kind of bringing to the table. And you could use this as a dialogue to where you might be able to kind of pull those two sides a little closer, which in the end is ultimately going to help support our young scholars. Um, kind of engage in different problems, develop a plan, future contact during the school year, kind of, get a handout about different activities and schedules. What are things that are going on inside the school that you can come support, etc. Post-conference, that simply mean, continue to stay in touch with the teacher, so y'all continue to have conversations. Also a part of the National African American Parent Involvement Day, there's a parents pledge that was put together. Kind of simple pledge, talks about things of take my child to school on the second Monday, be a part of that. Pledge to visit your child in school on a regular basis, not necessarily just one day. If that's all you could do, that's great too. We support that. Recommit yourself to your child's education, right? A lot of times we have this concept of here's where I drop my kid off, and here's where the kid, and then they're kind of, it's up to the school. We are our first and most impactful teacher in our young people's lives. We're the parent. So we're the first in that. And we should own that. And so, again, recommit yourself to your child's education. Become involved as much as possible in the different activities to where you can. Provide a good study environment for your child at home. Different things like that. They cannot be doing their homework while they're playing PlayStation in the background or TikTok. Get a proper study environment. Supervise and review your child's homework. If nothing else, at least ask them what are they doing daily. What did you do in school today? What's your homework? A lot of times we're totally scared to look at our kids' work. I learned that from doing online. I'm like, whoa, you guys are like rocket scientists compared to when we were in school. But the point is even if I don't know the answer, the fact that I'm asking my child about it, that in itself lets them know that this is important, that our family values this, and that makes your kid attempt to do the best that they possibly can. Speak to your child's teacher regularly. Don't just wait for a parent-teacher conference. Teach your child the value of education, spend quality time, be a positive role model, work hard to keep your child healthy, drug-free, work cooperatively with the school and community toward educational excellence. Again, for all children. I mean, the focus is obviously and often our child, but if this is in play for all of our children and all of our scholars, then our kids will reciprocate from that. And essentially, they have a pledge and a different thing that you can sign off on. There's also something in relationship to students as it relates to this particular day. There to try to encourage you, etc. Discuss with your parents these different kind of bullet points about school routines, grades, citizenships, etc., etc. Those are things to where a student is sharing with this parent, giving them a lot more insight into what is actually going on a daily basis. Then we're asking our young students to adhere to whatever kind of family household rules and regulations. Our kids aren't just supposed to run willy-nilly and do whatever the heck they want to do. Adhere to curfews, observe quiet time for studies, find appropriate places in the home to study. That's something that we're asking students. Seek help when you need it. Do your chores, your responsibilities. All of those things lend to you being a solid person. Get a clear understanding of your homework and instructions from the teacher. Bring appropriate books, supplies, etc. home to be able to do what you got to do. Maintain an open and honest communication with parents and teachers, etc. And then model appropriate behavior. Those are some of the things that we're asking students to uh, um, uh, to step up and do, and or if they are doing those things, to continue doing those things, right? Um, Teachers, there's also something that they're calling on teachers, support this concept, maintain a higher expectation of all students, right? A lot of times the expectation is such low hanging fruit for our kids. It's we're not going to get anywhere. Whereas if teachers are kind of elevating that expectation and not only elevating it, but also giving them the support to be able to reach those expectations. Make sure you're adequately prepared for different type of conferences. Use dialogue that's open, honest, and parent friendly. I know that could be a challenge. A lot of times parents clearly don't want to maybe hear the truth about their kids, but we have to try to have that type of dialogue. Uh, you know, Current attendance, grades available. Be prepared to show samples of the student's work. A lot of times when we're just kind of going off the top of where the kid is doing this or not doing this, whereas if I could show you something, then I could get a visual of that. Make the climate and culture parent friendly, exchange numbers, etc. Best time to contact people. We did a workshop and we were talking about how difficult that is sometimes for teachers. I mean, there's so much on their plate, right? But in these times, we have to kind of figure out those extra steps we could take. How do we move the needle from people thinking as, oh, you're just part of this whole big thing, but where we could drill down to more individually, so texting and different things like that, utilizing that. Um, Encourage the parent to maintain open communication and frequent visits, et cetera, et cetera. There also was a teacher's pledge that was put together as part of this. I don't know if you guys seen this or if you did go over it, but just very quickly, in American Day, African American students continue to lag behind European American students, Asian American students, and other ethnic groups on tests at the state and national level. Further, a recent report published is basically saying text based on essential goals and objectives set by Michigan. We're at the bottom of scale in reading, math, and science. Again, this pattern began as early as fourth grade, never seemed to recover. We are 4 times more likely as European American children to live with neither parent, to be supervised by a child welfare agency, to die as teenagers, and to be sent to jail between the ages of 15 and 19 years old. Let that resonate for one moment, if you will. This whole thing, dying as teenagers. We continue to see violence that's plaguing our communities. We continue to see our young people get locked up at an earlier and earlier age. We continue to see behavior get criminalized as young as elementary school, et cetera, et cetera. So those are things, this teacher pledge is, if you really read down into it, those are things that we're gonna have to really start addressing. All of these kind of early type of stats in here, twice as likely as European Americans, et cetera. Unemployed, all of those things. We often are socially isolated. These combinations of deliberating factors can produce social economic risk that impoverish African American children's world so that the child lacks the basic social and psychological necessities of life. These are real life things, these things continue to affect our kids long term, and we have to sort of break these cycles. Not sort of, we have to break these cycles. And so it's just take action, teachers, as my teacher taking responsibility seriously and dedicated myself to the task of effectively educating all children. I here now commit myself to a pledge of educational excellence for African American students. Just one quick thing about the African American emphasis. We're not saying this to say and or eliminate any other child, right? We're just saying that our deficit is so deep and so wide. We have to hone in, and we have to put forth a massive effort to get our kids to even, I guess, in a lot of ways, is to the starting line, or even starting point at least. Okay, there's some things the teacher pledged to do some of the followings: highest possible level of educational competency for yourself and your colleagues, classroom, student, parent friendly. I will reach out. I will review and modify my teaching approach, curriculum, and teaching style to make certain they meet the specific needs of African American students. A lot of times teachers have no say-so in what curriculum they're teaching. A lot of times those curriculums are just something that's purchased, whatever that district or whatever the powers to be at those schools decide that they want. Whereas we know that we all learn differently. We don't all learn the same way. And so this is essentially saying that teachers will be aware of that, and you will make your best effort to teach every child. And then you're going to advocate for the best interest and well-being of your students. Teachers are with our kids, and a lot of times they're with our kids more than the parents actually are. And so, you know, we need you to advocate. You're inside the buildings, you're inside the curriculums. You know what work, you know what don't work. So we need you to realistically advocate highly for our kids. Again, promote high self-esteem, maintain contact with parents, however you got to do that. And this is something that they're asking teachers to pledge. I know the time is getting short. This also speaks to things from in terms of building principals and school administrators, school boards. Like I say, a lot of times we leave the school board off the hook. We tend to think of them as this other entity, when in reality, they actually work for us. So we need to be engaging with them as well. Talks about public officials, politicians, organizations and communities, businesses, clergy, etc., tutors, mentors, etc. Earlier, one of the first statements when I was going through this, it was that proverb about it takes a village. And this is essentially what all of this is talking about, you know, that is all of these other different entities that have to play a role inside of this process for our young folks to have a successful education experience. That being said, it is 6:59, so I'm going to stop. And you know, if there's any questions you guys have for me, etc., we can do that and or go from there.
Thank you. That's awesome presentation. And you know, I think what we can do and come together, Mr. Hopkins, is break down sections of what you have. There's a lot there, and we can break down sections on different things that we can grasp hold to, because all of it is important. The statistics, what's going on in our community. You know, a lot of people don't even know how Black History Month got started. You know, you hear a lot of people now want, you know, people of our color who want to stop Black History Month. And once again, as I made a statement earlier, if you don't know your history, it repeats itself, right? So Carter G. Woodson, you know, he was one of the founders of Black History Month in February. Well, he wanted us, our Black people, to know their heritage. And the reason he chose February, because of Abraham Lincoln, it was his birthday, February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, who didn't know his birthday, but he chose Valentine's Day, February 14th, right? And in saying all that, to say this, it wasn't Black History Month, it was Black History Week. And it wasn't until the 70s, where they made it a month, and it was signed into law by Gerald Ford, 1976. Okay, so it's important for us to understand the history moments. And like, Mr. Hopkins said, we're not putting down any other ethnicity, but the statistics are real. When you see what's going on in the community in the age gap of 15 to 19, well, you can probably go to 12 to 19 now, because the things you're seeing in the paper, what's going on with carjacking and robbing and stuff, they are getting younger. Okay. And it's because of, it's not the involvement of what you're bringing to the table with your program. It's not just the teachers. It's just not the staff. It's the parents. The parents have to be involved, because we had back in the day one FEM, family engagement. It was PTA. Okay. And my mom was involved in PTA, and she knew what was going on in that school with her 4 kids, because number one, the school was right across the street from where we live. So I better not mess up. I mean, it was like right across the street. She walked to the school, but she knew what was going on. The parents in the community was active. So that's how we get the involvement back, is for the parents to be more proactive than reactive, take the load up off the teachers and the staff members, because they're overwhelmed. And then people look at, the staff and the teachers to be responsible. And it's like, no, you got to start in the home. We start in our home with Anthony. I know Miss Cleveland and her kids, they start in the home. So you have to start in the home. So I want to respect everybody's time. This is wonderful. And we, like I say, Mr. Hopkins, we're going to get together, because when I worked for the union, that was part of my job. I was over a program called AFRAM, and it promoted socioeconomic justice and mentor training for people of color in the union, but it involved every color, right? And it was to teach, the gaps in our unemployment, in our incarceration, in healthcare. We was at the bottom of everything, or the top far as, being incarcerated, things like that. So Ms. Hatter, you want to come off mute and let everybody know about our meeting tomorrow, so we can close this down, this part of the segment.
I just want to encourage people to, as much as they want to be involved with figuring out about bringing more people, more parents involved, let us know. We have a meeting on Wednesday night, Wednesday evening, after work, to talk about how this meeting went, to plan for the next meetings. If you have ideas for speakers or anything, we want to hear from you. And
Yes,
I
so-
just want to, this is a little editorial comment, that I got a letter from Penumbra, because I give them a tiny little bit of money whenever I can. And the director of Penumbra today talked about the death of Amir. And what she encouraged us all to do is not forget about love. She said that she was writing a letter to talk about love, and she didn't want to change the subject because of the continuing dire incidents, but that we really need to keep sharing and loving and talking about how important we are to each other.
Yes.
And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. And tomorrow, for those of you who are going to be part of, our moving forward, these are some of the things we can talk about within our little frame time of how we want to get these messages out to the core, to the masses, right? Because our little group can be here all day, and we know what needs to be done. But, until we get this out to the masses, and Lord, please don't let me go back to Gary style and cornering people, that you got to come to these doggone meetings and get involved, because this is how important the future of our children and for ourselves. See, because there's no reason for us to go to the gas station and feel threatened that somebody's going to rob us or carjack us. This is some serious stuff that's going on. So we have to get our kids more involved to let them know that they do have a future and it's not hopeless. So thank you all for coming. And for those of you going to be here tomorrow, I think it's 5:30 p.m. We'll see you tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night.